Speaking of movies,
I
have you seen Dune yet, Kyle?
I have not seen Dune.
I won't spoil it. I've thought about this in advance, so I can talk about it without spoiling it.
Okay.
Dune is a hot pile of garbage. That is the worst fucking movie I've seen in 3 or 4 years from now.
Really?
Well, I hate to hear that. That's a shame.
It is 2.5 hours long. If I wanted to, I could tell you what happened in 45 seconds. You might wonder, what do they do with their 2.5 hours? It is slowly unfolding different CGI scenes, slowly unfolding a CGI desert. A CGI spaceship will slowly come into scene.
You know what's
Would you like to see the interior of a CGI room? Well, we're going to pan the camera up. I'm like hitting the 30-second forward button through this movie, just like, oh my God, I know I can't sit through another one of these. This is a guy who thinks the Marvel series is like the peak of cinematic history. And I am like, you guys are leaning too hard on the CGI.
I mean, people seem to like it. I don't know
wrong with me.
Okay. I'll look at the reviews then. There's a glimmer of hope left. Maybe Woody is just being Woody, and everything's okay. But no, I don't like what I've heard you say so far. I'll say this: the first one had the exact opposite problem, right? Like the movie begins with like a solid 90 seconds of just. It was the fourth age when the princess came to the navigators with the spice melange on the desert planet Arrakis. And like 80% of what I just said isn't even made up gobbledygook. And then it just goes on and there's this one period like in the middle of the movie or really like 3/4 of the way through where like Paul Atreides is working with the desert nomads and they're just like, and then he spent a few years becoming a badass. Like there's just like voiceover and it's just like, wait, are we gonna skip the part where he does his Jedi training essentially and like ride giant sandworms? And they do. They're just like, yeah, then some time passed, in which time he became super hardcore. So just know now he's like a badass. And then they move along.
I'm thinking in advance so as I don't spoil anything. It'll be interesting to see what you think about that plot arc next time.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
You know what I do remember? Dune.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, I wish you'd watch Dune.
Yes,
you had to talk about Dune, Kyle.
You had homework to watch Dune for a week now. You had enough time today to watch Dune twice, and you said that wasn't enough time.
This is gross exaggeration. What actually happened was yesterday evening at 8 p.m. you said, hey, you should watch Dune so that we can talk about it tomorrow. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll get right on that. I haven't
watched for that show, the PKA.
Oh, well then I'm misremembering.
Yes, don't go against my memory, Kyle. You'll never win.
And one way or the other,
timeline, he's always right.
One way or the other. My apologies. I'll tell you what actually happened. I looked at the movie and I really didn't feel like I was in the mood to watch it, and I didn't realize, and also I didn't realize that like anybody would really want to talk about it. I thought maybe we just touch on it a little, but now you kind of made it a big topic thing. So I will step away if you guys want to talk about Dune, because I haven't watched it and I do want to watch it because I'm excited to watch it.
We could actually do that. You know what? We'll just drop the spoilers now tag so you can come back safely when we're finished.
Or, I mean, you could, no, I'll step away. You'll continue to, I see what you mean. Because
that's when you know to come back.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll text you.
Okay. I'm just going to go over here so I can like see
All right.
I'm going to go, the back porch is behind me. I'm going to go out there.
Sure.
So Taylor, you watched Dune and you had a not too far in different opinion than me, but different. What did you think?
Yeah. So like overall, I was not blown away by it. It, just high level first, like it kept my attention, and it has a very deep world with a lot of like kind of, tendrils going out to different things. And it's clearly like there's a lot of depth to it. And I liked that. You said you thought it went on a little too long. Like I disagreed like totally the opposite way, because I felt like they would introduce like ancillary groups to like the families, and then they would immediately like act like that was a foregone conclusion and you should know who these people are, or like the prophecy would come about, or like the seers when they go in there and there's a bunch of references to an old fucking prophecy. And I was hoping like, oh yeah, I want more backfill. I want more backstory on how this effectively a coven of witches is behind the scenes manipulating the politics of the families. and then 3/4 of the way through, that there's just another family introduced on the side
4/8 of the way through.
4/8 of the way through.
Sure.
They bring in like that third family because it had just been the two, the antagonist family, and then Atreides. And then they're like, oh, and now there's the Sakinian family who's coming to help this other. And it's like, okay, well, I wish I knew more about. I forgot the name of them, but this other family with the really tough fighters is
Sarkinen or something like that.
Sarkinen.
Sarkonin.
Let me jump in for a second.
They're not
a little differently.
Yeah.
If I'm watching a movie and then you spend whatever, like 12 minutes giving me shit that's not on the test, right? That's just ancillary, and then we never visit it again. You've wasted my time. Right. When I tell you what happened in that movie, I don't cover the bullshit that's not on the test. I tell you the central like core timeline. I feel like if you just shoot straight up the middle and skip all the side quests on Dune, this is a 60-second description for a 2.5-hour movie of what happened. And that to me is a sign of a poorly done movie.
I just don't think that they fleshed out the world enough. Like there's clearly a lot of depth there. When they would reference the Coven or that third family, not the Harkonnen or the Atreides, the other one, like
it's not a family.
Harkonnen, isn't that one?
Aren't you talking about Sardaukar?
The Sardaukar, that was the third family.
They're not a family.
Okay, well then, see, I didn't know who that was. They were bringing in soldiers from some other banner, and I was like, I wish I had a little backstory on who these guys are and why they're against the
Do you
Atreides.
want the 5-second backstory on it?
Yes, I would actually.
They are the elite Imperial Guard. They're essentially the emperors. So this is the feudal structure of this is like an emperor with a bunch of lords, and the lords are under the emperor, but they all have their own power. So this is the emperor's elite troops being brought in, which is a big part of the plot because the emperor's elite troops are not supposed to be being used against any individual house. So those being brought in is really indicative of the emperor is supporting this kill of the Atreides family, essentially.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I would have loved to get a little more info on the emperor. I'm sure they're holding that back on purpose to keep like suspense up for all that, because you didn't really get any direct empire look. But yeah, it just felt like there's so much density to this story. They could have made it a 6-movie series and explored a lot of this a lot more, but it felt almost like they were rushing.
They could have made it a 6-movie series, and I would have liked it maybe even more. Like, it sounds like I'm asking for less. I'm just saying, if you're going to have a lame little branch that doesn't go anywhere, that's worse than no branch and not as good as a great strong branch.
I really liked that. I like the film a lot. And then, although I feel I'm getting more pushed towards that direction as I hear criticism against it, because a lot of things you're saying I didn't find to be criticisms. And I liked some of the shortcuts they took with explaining things, because there's so much backlog of thing to kind of get through that I like that they were moving the movie forward while still giving hints of these things. And I thought they did a lot of that visually. Like, I thought like the shots of like the ships were really cool. It like gave this sense of like future tech without, and like divergent from our humanity kind of tech, right? Like real alien looking stuff, but still in this kind of future to like to suggest that this stuff is divergent and different. And then like, I don't know, I liked a lot of that. My biggest complaint of that initially was there's a big part of this world that didn't get explained in there somewhere, which was along the lines of, technology is all person centric in this world, right?
Yeah.
Like AI computing machines aren't allowed anymore. And there's a whole history with that and that world of that. And I thought that was really central to that, because sometimes you look at the shit and you're like, why are they flying this? How can that ship run like underneath the ship without getting shot? Why are these people doing these things as opposed to a computer doing it if they're flying around in spaceships? And I felt like that for me like was a bit of a hole logically. If you don't know the backstory of that, was never explained. But I thought by and large they did a really great job of, for me, situating this family structure, this feudal system in space in the future, with these cool scenes of like showing like the sizes of these things and like I don't know, I loved it. I hadn't seen one.
Your take on it. There's some things that you saw in it that I didn't. For example, what I was gonna say before you started was, who loved this movie? This movie fucking loves itself with its grand CGI 90-second like rolling into watching the ship, the room, the landscape, whatever. And I'm like, oh my fucking God, I get it. Your CGI budget was high. I get it. But now you're like, no, Woody, they're trying to tell you something quickly about what the tech looks like. And it's like, okay, all right, maybe Filthy saw it through a different lens.
Same with the infrastructure though, right? Like that's those huge shots of these of these massive buildings with like this imperial architecture. It's supposed to be the feudal stuff, right? This is supposed to be the power and wealth of these noble families and imperial structures compared to everything else out there. I thought it was just like such a cool shortcut with this. And to your point about the movie,
I thought the movie was jacking off to pictures of itself. Like, that's how I interpreted it, but I see what you see now.
And I watched the interview with the I think God, it must be the director, right? Who put this together, and this is a love letter to the book, right? This is a guy who's like a huge fan of this, who was trying to do it justice, you know, to like put like the imagery of the book and the story into film. And I thought he did an incredible job with that by and large.
I thought there was something cool about the universe. Actually, the combat is the thing about Dune that I like the most. And for people who don't know the universe at all, this is what's up. They wear these shields during combat that don't interfere with you. They're not like a suit of armor. It's like an electric suit of armor almost, such that bullets and fast moving things, even a fast moving sword, wouldn't penetrate this. But slow moving things do penetrate it. So you can interact with the world as if you weren't wearing this thing. You could pick up a ball and throw it like normal. But if I were to shoot a gun, then your shield would block it. So the way that they do combat is they have to like, I don't know, like sort of position before submission. Like they have to get the guy in a spot and then slowly push the dagger through the shield. And it means that like that's how combat happens. A gun doesn't work in this universe because the shield stops fast moving things. And from a like viewer standpoint, it's like, oh, I like this, because it is hard to rationalize how Jedis are the most badass people in Star Wars when it would seem like a dude with a blaster, or shucks, 4 dudes with a blaster would eventually get through his blaster deflecting, you know, lightsaber. But in this, you really do get on board with it. It's like, yeah, that guns, things like that, they don't work that well.
You can't help but imagine that, like, with that much technology, though, they'd come up with something. Like something that can penetrate it.
You know what they should have had?
There's always like escalation as you go on.
Woody, the playing Q, you know, from James Bond. A gun that shoots a net, right? Just like hold the guy down, like a net with the weights on the end that traps him, and then you can slow kill him. That would be a really effective range weapon.
That actually, like I buy into like the, you know, that's just the universe. Like they don't have guns, and that's probably for the best, like to keep the fighting better and more intense.
Yeah.
It does. But like something I didn't like is when they get hit and it flashes red around them. Like it is a very, like I was watching that top down part of the battle where they're all fighting, and it's like, it really is just a mishmash blur of blue and red at a couple points. And it's like, I'm not even able to like see the people swinging. It's just kind of mushy. So that was distracting.
I think it sounds like you didn't notice. Blue means the shield stopped it. Red means the shield's been penetrated.
Yeah. And it was just like, it was a top down battle. And so you're seeing like a bunch of blue and red. And it was like disorienting, where it's like I'm more focused on the colors flashing than I am trying to like watch somebody's sword or something like that.
So I'm seeing the red as a clue that people are dropping on the battlefield.
But think of what this does for like both cinematography and like storytelling, and then also what the implications of this world are, right? Because there's none of this, because they've gone away from computing and they try to do this by the betterment of a person. So they have like these human computer type, the Mentat stuff, right? Which are these super, you know, the superhumans essentially. And the whole Bene Gesserit thing is breeding the Superman kind of deal. This is all of, and then the shields make it so individual combat is a realistic thing again in the future. You know, like all of these things are about then like hero figures. The whole world is structured around impressive entities, right? The impressive leader of this family who's trained in all these things, capable of all these things, individually changes things. And the whole film, I mean, first of all, that's really good. That sets up a really good stage for storytelling, because then you have these heroes that are kind of ridiculous in some movies, have a bit more sense in this world. And then second, the whole structure of everything in that supports it, which is so cool to like watch and see that. So
I feel like I like hearing about Dune more than I like watching Dune. Because to watch it is just to watch slow CGI scenes unfold for 2.5 hours.
Have you
Sorry, go ahead.
Have you read the books? You seem to like have a deep knowledge. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I read the books as a kid, and then I listened to them again with my wife.
How old were you when you read the books? Oh,
God, I don't remember now.
Yeah, I read the books when I was too young to read them. I was in middle school, and I don't get it.
You know who I liked as a character who I hated in the original Dune because he was disgusting, is the head of House Harkonnen, who like floats around, the Baron. Like I liked him a lot. Like I watched the first Dune a couple years ago on Kyle's recommendation. He's like, just go into it knowing that it's horrible and it's just you're watching it because it's silly. Like don't take it seriously. And like that guy, he's like got like pustules and boils going off. But they got that guy from Chernobyl. I don't know him from other stuff, but that actor from Chernobyl, and he's got that grizzled voice where we're going to take now, right? We're going to take House Atreides, and it's like, yeah, okay, this guy, he's not a goofy fucking idiot like the old version of him. He's actually like pretty imposing, and I in the first one, like when that guy would like float at someone, it was like an unintimidating bubble almost. But this guy's like, even though he's like a big fat disgusting blob, he's like a very powerful big fat disgusting blob who's like floating towards you with authority. And so I thought that they did a good job mitigating that silliness from the previous one and making it intense.
Yeah, I liked him. He's menacing. He's an actual villain as opposed to a clown now, which is really nice.
Yeah, the first one, it's like he's like having trouble wiping his ass, like spinning around like it's Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, and they have to like rope him back down to clean him.
God, the first one was so bad.
Yeah, it was rough.
So I'm really excited about this. I'm hoping this is the start of a series. I mean, it's going to be based on how it does, right? This is the decision about whether or not they make more of these. This is always designed to be essentially beginning of a series of these, and I hope they do, because I thought the first one, it went on a bit long for me overall, and it was very visual. Like parts of the story I thought dragged a little bit for these visuals, but the visuals in context, but it required a lot of extra context, right, for this to be so cool. But for me, they were really good. I left that really impressed with that film, which it doesn't happen a lot to me when I'm watching this. So
well, it looks like they're already planning 3, and they split the first novel into 2, which I'm sure you must have noticed. So yeah, hopefully they'll parse it out even more. Maybe have 4 or 5 movies. It's a cool universe.
Think the next ones might be better because the first one has a lot of like. Ever tell a story? Like if I were to tell you a story about Formula One, well, first I need to tell you 13 things about Formula One you don't know already, and now you'll understand why this is interesting. Dune had that same problem to solve. It's like I need to explain to you the shields, the tech, the families, this, that, and the other thing. By movie 2, by movie 2. They can just be like, and here's what happens next. And that's it. Just give me the good shit that I'm looking for. So maybe it'll be great. I don't know. I guess I'm like the masses in that I enjoy a movie that has a big universe. I enjoy, show me another universe. Show me Lord of the Rings. Show me Game of Thrones. Show me whatever. Marvel. I'm digging your entire universe. I like your rules. I'm here. But, anyway, so now that we know the universe's rules, maybe next movie will flow better.
Yeah. I hope so.
I need to read the books.
Okay, one more example from this, Woody, for that world and the universe for this, right? Because you bring that up. So this is a big spoiler now. So if you haven't seen this movie, sorry, I'm gonna actually be specific about it. The attempted assassination scene where they're trying to kill Paul, and there's an actual guy buried in the wall to do that. That's more of the lack of computers. Why wouldn't this just be a drone they sent off from this? Because there are no drones in this universe. There's no autonomous things like this. So it's literally a guy who's expected to die there and just to stay dedicated enough to that family for whatever hold they have over him to stay and attempt to assassinate this guy by manually controlling this device to go after him, kind of deal. It's just like, even that like doesn't make any sense outside of like the rest of the framework for why that would be true. But when you get like why that would be true there, it's something more of an interesting scene, at least to me. So I don't know.
Something that was that like I was watching it with my wife, and this like jumped out at her. She's like, there's like House Harkonnen and House Atreides, and then there's just this guy named like Tucker Alamo who's out there like fighting, and it's just a disjoint. What is that guy's name?
Duncan, I think it's Duncan Idaho, right?
Duncan Idaho. Yeah, close enough to Tucker Alamo, but Duncan Idaho was such a bizarre like little throwback. I was hoping they would give an example of why his name is Duncan Idaho, because you know what I mean? There are fantasy names. Like if some guy named Alan was in the 9 Lord of the Rings members, that would stand out like a sore thumb. Like Aragorn, Gimli, and Alan. Like it would be disjointed. And so all these cool fantasy names, and then fucking,
but Paul's not much of a fantasy name either, right?
That's true, but that's a normal name where it's like, okay, that's just a guy named Paul in the universe. But Tucker Alamo, that was a bit disjointed, or whatever his name is. Now I'm not going to be able to remember his name ever.
Okay.
Duncan Idaho. That's what it is. But yeah, I'll tell Kyle he can come back.
All right.
I really enjoyed that.
I watched Dune for a second time last night as well. God damn, that's a good fucking movie.
Any better the second time? Any
Yeah,
worse?
it was,
you notice more?
Yeah, it's fucking great. It's fucking killer.
Yeah, I watched it like 4 times. I love that movie.
I
just like Denis Villeneuve, just like he's just really good at it.
Really fucking good.
But that's the ultimate movie. The ultimate. If someone's like, bro, I have a buddy who's like, I put on Dune, bro, and I heard this fucking woman and her stupid kid complaining about life in the fucking desert for like an hour, bro. And it's the ultimate, like, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, it's not for everyone. People are like, yo, should I see Dune? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, but I'm going to go see it a third time now.
Like there's so many little things in there that had me like, because I know the story or whatever. I haven't read the book, but I obviously watched the first one multiple times, like both versions, and I like it. I got a soft spot for it, for that first Dune movie. But like, there's a part where like his boots were like put on in a particular way, and she's like, "Your boots are on desert shimmy style," and he's like, "It just seemed like the right way." And
he is like, the chosen one.
And then she like quotes some sort of like nonsense, and he shall know the ways of your people.
And he shall know how to put his boots on.
I almost wish he'd been like, could we all, what?
It's literally like,
she said it out loud in front of him. Like,
that was funny. Like, he just like put something on in a way that makes sense intrinsically, and they're like, how did you know?
Like, you tied your shoelaces with bunny ears.
It would be
you don't
like,
tie your shoelaces to each shoe?
You double knotted?
Here's the thing.
That's a desert trick.
I guarantee it, that like one like special forces guy sees another tie his fucking shoes as strangers, and he's like, "Oh, I noticed you're using the loop-de-loop method." There's blood on your hands.
Even when she described, she's like, "Yeah, oh, you put like the loop on the outside of your boot." I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but from what you just said, that's exactly how I would have done it too. And I'm not fucking Muad'Dib or whatever. Like, I'm not the Kwisatz Haderach. I fucking put the loop over the shoe because that's what like anyone.
That's what you do with shoes.
I've been skiing, bro. Like I know how it works.
They did a really good job of like not being up their own ass about how cool their special effects were. Like so much was obscured by smoke, fog, dust, and darkness. Like I feel like
it just existed. You never thought about it.
Made Independence Day, Schumacher, or like who was it that made Independence Day? Like I can't think of that fucker's name, but like he would never hide a fucking spaceship, but like that. It would have to be like big and bright, and the sun would be lit on it. And
yeah,
like
you never thought about the effects in that movie. Like the movie just existed.
You
never thought about it. Like,
I thought it was all about special effects. Now someone opened my eyes. It might have been Filthy to this, but I was like, there were so many slow scenes where they gradually unveiled a CGI room, a CGI ship, a CGI crawler, CGI and I'm like, oh my God, I get it. You're beating me over the head with your goddamn CGI. I took it up differently. But then Filthy said, I think it was Filthy. What they're doing here is they're explaining the world to you without beating you over the head. Like, this is what the technology is like. All the technology isn't self-driving. It's operated by people. This is a family of great power and prestige. That's what you're taking away from this slow room unveiling. It is a royalty. And I was like, all right. You're right. I was wrong.
I saw that movie and I was like, that was great. I didn't feel like I lacked anything. I saw it again. I understood it further. I was like, oh, okay. Then I went and read the Dune book because I never read it before. And I had a flight and I got on the plane and I fucking read it. And I was like, bro, I would never like this book if that movie wasn't so sick.
That's right.
This guy doesn't even describe what people look like. You don't know what anyone looks like. He describes like Baron Harkonnen because it's like
you have
to explain it. But like he doesn't, he says like, like Paul Atreides has like a pointy nose. Picture whatever the fuck you want, basically. He describes like equipment here and there. That. He'll describe a room. But I
the worst part.
I was like, if I didn't have the movie, this would be fucking
hard.
You'd
have no point of reference.
Do you know what happens to Paul Atreides in the books? I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just asking if you know.
Yes. But I didn't read it. I I went to a subreddit after reading the book, but I went to a subreddit that goes to all the books. And I got like a book 2 or book 3 spoiler, and I was like, oh. And it was such a thing that I was like, what's the best Dune book? And people were like, book 4. And I'm like, fuck, I gotta read 2 and 3 now to get to the good one. That's so frustrating. But I'm still down because the whole world of it, like I'm in on it. Like I like it.
It's dense. There's so much.
Yeah.
It reminds me so much of Warhammer 40K. Like parts of it do.
What's that? I've never heard you. Is that a thing you like?
Are you joking?
Yeah. Have you guys played Tarkov?
No.
Hey, you like bacon and liquor? I have.
Fuck for sure.
No, but I agree. I love the book, and I started to read it after that. I wouldn't have felt that way. And I never watched old Dune. And people were like, it's so trippy. And I was like, why would it be trippy? Dude. And then I went and I put on the old Dune movie, and it starts off, and I'm like, this is so fucking trippy.
With Virginia Madsen with that fucking exposition.
Yeah, exactly. And you know me, I love my expositions. But then like they did some shit, and I was like, who the fuck is that? You're starting here. This is how we do it. This is how you spell it out for like a 1980s audience.
There's that part, and I don't know if this is in the extended edition or not, but like, let me lay this out for the audience. The evil character has a hairless cat that is presented, and the hairless cat has a rat that has either been tied to it or grafted surgically to it. It's hard to tell if those are bandages or just like some way to secure it. And he's informing this man that he has been poisoned, and the only cure for his poison, well, there is no cure, but there is medication for it. It is the milk of this hairless cat. And so every day he must milk the hairless cat for his antidote. And you're like, all right, so these are the bad guys, right? And then there's the one guy who's got like the heart plug, and like I'm sure the book explains it a little bit better, but it seems to me that they like surgically implanted like a thing in his heart where like if you want to, you can just pull it out, and it's like pulling the stopper on a bathtub. You know, like it just unseals his heart to the world, and he just bleeds out right there. And he does that to the guy, like for no apparent reason. And he's clearly has like this incestuous infatuation with his son, who is played by Sting. Sting comes out, and he's like, not only was Sting like clearly like one of the hottest men in like the world at that point, but like he's the hottest man on the planet Harkonnen, because like everybody else there is like a greasy pig of a human being, and he's like wearing that weird fucking like, I don't know what that cod piece he's wearing with the wings and everything is, and he's just like ripped as fuck 8-pack coming out, and his dad is like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And then they cut to his brother, and his brother's like, yeah. And it's like, are you guys jerking it to like Sting right now? Like, what are we supposed to take from this? They're so.
I don't think he's related to Sting actually.
They are. That's his.
He's the uncle of the other guy, the bigger one.
I thought they were brothers.
No, this guy's like a ward of sorts to him. Maybe there is a relation. Okay. I don't think so, but
maybe he's like a general.
Very weird.
Yeah, he's like a ward.
And there's strong pedo vibes. Like he's like basically he's got.
Oh, he's got a boy. He's got a
boy. Yeah, he's got boys.
Yeah, he's got a femboy for sure.
Yeah,
in the original movie, it's very clear that Harkonnen wants to fuck him.
Yeah. He's a horny guy, and I was watching. I was like, oh, they leaned hard in the horniness. We didn't get much horniness in the Denis Villeneuve one.
And I heard someone, I can't remember who I heard reviewing it, but they described it this way: that in the original, they really took the most bizarre things from the book and like, look how zany this is. Like, there's the part where Baron Harkonnen is like floating around the room like Willy Wonka style, like he's just like silly. It gets silly. And in the Villeneuve, whatever his fucking name, I can't do it, version, this new version, he just kind of floats a little, and you're like, oh, he's just got some sort of hover thing going on. Okay, that actually seems a marginally practical. Maybe they've got a heavy gravity on their planet or some shit. Yeah. He doesn't float away like Willy Wonka on like.
He literally is like a balloon that you let the air out. He's in the room. And he's like.
It's a terrible looking effect, and like all the effects in the original look.
Well, bad. The shield. I saw the shields, and I was like, what the fuck? They're like in rectangles.
Do you know how they do that fucking thing? That's called Moto Scoping.
Oh yeah, I know how that's done.
And it involves literally drawing those by hand with a ruler, and for every frame over. But you end up not being able to see shit. I love that technology and that premise, because you've always got this issue anytime like it's hard to have a narrative that involves guns where your main character doesn't get shot by the fucking gun right away, because why wouldn't he? It's like he's without him we'd be nowhere. Bang, you're nowhere. Like that's what would happen, right? But this has kind of solved that. So because you have to use the hand-to-hand weapons, because the slow blade penetrates the shield, the fast blade.
Well, if you use and they have
the laser weapon,
yeah.
You have a fucking literally
nuclear explosion. If you shoot any one of these guys while he's wearing a shield with one of the like fancy laser guns, but this country is nuked. Like all of us
didn't know that.
I had to read. I read that part like 15 times. I'm like, my understanding this. I'm like, all the shields that I saw in the movie. If anyone shot someone with not a projectile gun but like a laser gun, I'm like, even the ones like I'm like, then everyone gets nuked. But what they don't tell you in the new movie is like that the ships that came and bombed the ship when it's actually so sick. The explosions that happen here, they're so sick and they look awesome. And like when the ship comes and crashes down, it just looks real. That whole scene, they don't say it in the movie, but they're using like artillery and like explosives and projectiles. And in the book, they're like, why would you use this? This is like 80,000 years old. And they're like, oh, because we're just gonna blow them up. They're gonna have shields up. We can't hit anyone with shields, and they don't talk about it. But in the book, because if you hit someone with a shield with a laser gun, it's a nuclear explosion.
Yeah,
and I was like, how does that? Why would that ever make sense to give everyone little potential nuclear explosive scenarios? You know what I mean?
Because it allows you to have a sci-fi narrative where you get to have sword fights. And it makes sense, because even Star Wars doesn't make much sense, because I guarantee I could kill a Jedi if you give me an AR-15.
Well, the Jedis, apparently Mandalorians were able to kill Jedis. Like they had shotguns.
That's
what
the
lightsabers don't work well. Like you can block a shotgun.
Oh my God.
Mandalorian weapons.
Wow,
were
so
like
that really is all
so
you
obvious.
need. I never thought about that. So just a single shotgun burst, and even Yoda is
the Mandalorian weapons were like made for Jedi specifically. That's why
Star Wars is stupid.
It is now. It is. Yeah, it sure is.